Stuck in a cycle of love and betrayal. After 4 years, I found out my avoidant boyfriend was lying about an old hookup while I struggled with my own anxious tendencies. Are you 100% committed to making this work? But can he truly change and prioritize me? I am naturally a secure partner. However, I found myself in a casual relationship with someone who is avoidant. I was not seeking anything serious since I had ended an engagement about 7 months prior, and I had spent time alone because I felt unprepared for a serious relationship due to the hurt I caused my former partner, which I did not enjoy. I also somewhat blamed myself for that situation because I was uncertain if I had an issue. After working to understand attachment styles, I realized that my disconnection originated from his anxious behavior. Despite my consistent boundary setting, he attempted to push those boundaries. I cared for him, but some boundaries affected my personal time with my children, and I still needed that connection with them that he was demanding attention for. Therefore, I was justified in ending that relationship. However, I had not done that work beforehand and did not want to hurt anyone else. Entering this relationship with an avoidant felt safe, as I did not feel pressured to do anything against my will and I thought it could remain non-committal. After a year, I developed feelings and expressed them. I informed him that if we were not on the same page, we needed to end the relationship. He assured me he was on board and we began officially dating. Although I noticed some issues, I vocalized my concerns. He would address them for a time and he genuinely changed in many ways. I was very patient with him, understanding that at 36, he had never experienced a real long-term relationship, so I was accepting of that. I only required the basics. I communicated to him at the beginning that I would not date someone for 5 years without any steps being taken toward marriage. He agreed, and we discussed this intermittently at my request to ensure we were progressing in the same direction. The problem arose because I think he felt comfortable during that time, knowing I would not pressure him or demand steps to be taken, which allowed him to feel safe getting closer without feeling forced. Around the fourth year, I began mentioning marriage more frequently and inquired about his thoughts and reservations. At times, he expressed a few concerns. His job might require relocation, and I had a boundary that I would not move my children away from their father, who has always been very involved in their lives. I established this boundary at the beginning of our relationship and never wavered on it. My boyfriend asked me about the type of rings I like, and around Christmas, we had an argument because he chose to spend all of his time off work in a different state with his family. Knowing I would not see him during that time since I wanted to spend Christmas with my kids, who also wanted to see their dad. This had been a recurring issue during Christmas. I did not demand extensive time from him. I simply wanted some communication and reassurance that a portion of his time off would be devoted to me and that it would be a priority. He did not provide reassurance or communicate that his plan was to spend the entirety of his break away until 3 days before it started. During this season, we typically spend about 4 to 5 hours per week together late at night since his work is extremely demanding during this time. I have no objection to this arrangement, and I am fine doing my own activities. However, I do require communication and for my partner to prioritize our connection at some point. During the argument, he mentioned he purchased a ring, and I requested that he refrain from giving it to me at that moment as this was a significant issue I needed to address before making an informed decision. He agreed. 3 months later, I discovered he had been in contact with an old hookup throughout our entire relationship, and they would frequently exchange messages that disrespected me, acting as though they still had feelings for each other, mostly on her part. But he played along. She had access to things he needed, and she could provide them for a low cost. He downplayed our relationship to her, and when I questioned him about their relationship months earlier, he lied, stating they had never dated, never hooked up, and had no connections other than being college friends and that she was married. I trusted this and never questioned it again. I now realize this was a deactivating strategy for him, but it was the deception that troubled me. I ended the relationship, but afterward I experienced a downward spiral. I could not trust myself and struggled to understand how I allowed myself to love someone this much and consider him my best friend while he actively disrespected me. This made me question many other aspects of my life as well. For months, we have been apart. I have attended therapy, read a book to comprehend attachment styles, worked out, explored new hobbies, made new friends, and focused intensively on my relationship with God, among other things. I spoke with him many times during this period and ultimately I still love him. I truly believed he was my person. However, over the past 6 months, I have developed anxious tendencies. It has felt overwhelming. Nevertheless, I feel as though I am gaining some solid footing in recent weeks. We have discussed the possibility of reconciliation and what that would entail. I have worked with my therapist on this and established some boundaries that he has agreed to, but I still sensed a disconnect in our communication. Conversation. Me, are you willing to send a text that fully explains your reasons for wanting to end things so you can pursue a healthy relationship? He claims he has not spoken to her in a while, but my boundary is that there be no relationship, and he must send a text that I can personally view, completely cutting off any ties with her. Him, I understand the reason and I will do it. On the other hand, it feels unreasonable that I have to end a long-term friendship. Me, this friendship has served as a deactivating strategy because it is non-committal, requires very little from you, provides validation, and offers an escape from our true relationship. She does not need anything from you because she receives that from her husband. This has disrespected me for years, and you must decide which relationship is more important. It will affect future relationships if your friendship with her does not change, and even then, if you do not inform your future partners up front about your past with her, you will always question whether they will find out and leave. Her husband could discover this as well. What then? He is battling cancer, so I chose not to inform him as it could worsen his health. She lives in a different state, so their meetings were not a concern. She will likely look to you for all of the things she asked him for. Now she is in the spotlight, and you will need to find a new deactivating strategy or she may sever ties with you. Side note not mentioned, it affects your morals and integrity. Is that something you think is important? Him, I understand the reasons and agree to them. Me, if you have any suggestions that might make both of us feel comfortable, I am open to listening, but right now, this is what I feel safe with. I dislike this situation and would never request that a partner eliminate a friend from his life. However, this has gone too far and both of you are at fault. You must fully choose what you desire. If it is her, then choose her entirely. I simply cannot be in a situation in which I cannot trust. Him, I will need to consider if there is a way for both of us to feel comfortable, but I will ensure to do that if not. Me, are you 100% committed to making this work? Him, oh yes. Me, I feel that our attitude toward this is different. I am hopeful, I believe it will work, and I want it to succeed. It feels like you are worried it will not work, keeping it at a distance, not fully hopeful but more in a wait-and-see approach. Him, yes, I think that is correct. I believe we cannot know if it will work until we try therapy, etc. Me, are you willing to do the homework? Is the goal to make this work? Him, oh yes. Me, then it will work. The goal is to create a secure attachment, so if we both share that goal and are willing to put in the effort, it will succeed. Love is a choice, not just a feeling. When the feelings are not always present, the choice remains. Would you agree with that? Him, oh yes. Me, why do you feel the need to separate your personal health and prioritize it over mental health and resolving this situation? Him, it is not the same thing. If I am not healthy, it can affect everything else. Me, okay, but why is one more important than the other? They should be viewed as equal because your mental health can influence your physical health, and that is already happening. He suppresses his feelings and has experienced a very high heart rate, but he does not connect the two. Him, absolutely, but I must prioritize my personal health above all, and it is not the same thing. Me, okay, but scientifically it is. Your mental health can affect your physical health, and your physical health can impact your mental health. Our relationship has created mental health issues for both of us. Is that not equally important, especially when it already affects your physical health? Him, no, it is different. This is when my frustration began. He believes I am trying to tell him that he is wrong and dictate the conversation. Me, I am not saying you are wrong. I am trying to understand why you view them as separate and why you need to place greater importance on physical well-being without associating it with your mental well-being. Is it because that includes me? Him, no, it is my opinion. I feel it is separate and I need that to be my top priority. Your children are your top priority and this is my top priority. Me, my children are not part of focusing on healing. There are other matters that take precedence at different and appropriate times. In regards to my personal growth, I believe both are equal because they both affect my well-being. The way I understand it, and correct me if I am wrong, is that you need that separation for your own autonomy because you want to feel distinct from me, which is more important to you. However, I realize that within a relationship, our health impacts my physical health as well and they cannot be separated. For you, as an avoidant, you require this disconnect and place more importance on that, even if it is merely a mental separation. For me, they are all equal. At some point, this must become equal for you because my happiness will also affect your happiness, which in turn influences your physical and mental health. It is all an interconnected system. It cannot be separated and one person's needs cannot take precedence, or it will not function. He largely agreed with this, but we had to end the call so he could make work-related calls. I understand this is lengthy, but does anyone have experience with this and is there hope for us to work things out? Has anyone truly witnessed an avoidant transform into a secure individual, or are their boundaries so rigid that the only change will occur in my mental health while I work on this, if it is not equally important? It is very challenging to gain clear understanding from an avoidant. I do not seek your judgment regarding my choice to possibly reconcile. I only ask for helpful insights, not someone criticizing me. You do not know all the details of the full relationship and the friendship that once existed. Story 2. In my 30s, I'm battling to keep my family intact while facing my extroverted boyfriend's demands. You need to be more cheerful, he says, unaware his past trauma makes it impossible for me to change. How can love survive when it feels like I'm drowning? Greetings to all. First of all, I want to apologize for my English. I am from Europe. I feel quite desperate and I do not know how to get out of this situation sensibly, so I thought I could seek advice from you in this group. I would like to hear an impartial opinion that might offer me a solution. It will be a bit lengthy and I appreciate your patience if you read it. We are a young family with two small children, a son who is 3 years old and a daughter who is 6 months old. My partner and I met 9 years ago, and 4 years ago we began living together in a multi-generational house with my parents. It is not a traditional multi-generational house, but the houses are adjacent, allowing us privacy. From the very beginning of our relationship, I felt that my partner and I belonged together. We understood each other in every aspect, even without words, as we are kindred spirits. However, things started to become complicated over time. The first turning point that altered our situation was my introduction to his family, specifically his father. It is important to mention that my boyfriend comes from a very troubled family background, marked by psychological and physical abuse from his parents, particularly from his father. His father was a highly unstable, frustrated individual who expressed his dissatisfaction with life by taking it out on his children. Yet the core issue is that his father is a deeply introverted person, a melancholic, and I share that trait. The difference is that, although I also come from a loving family and adore my children, I express my introversion in a diametrically opposite manner. When my boyfriend discovered this similarity, a subconscious part of him began to perceive that aspect of me as an adversary. Rationally, he knows that it is illogical because I am not like his father, but it continuously evokes childhood traumas for him. Consequently, I can sense his unconscious aversion to my personality, despite the fact that he loves me and I love him. This creates a substantial dilemma for us. My boyfriend is an extrovert who enjoys conversing, while I am more reserved and struggle with rhetoric, which frustrates him. We frequently argue about this, as he often blames me for being closed off, lacking cheerfulness, and making him feel isolated. From the onset of our relationship, he verbally targeted these aspects of my personality, but fortunately, he managed to rework that behavior. Nevertheless, I can still feel its emotions deeply affect me, and I sense his desire for me to change entirely to become someone more like his childhood influencing figure. This desire pains me, and even though I can rationalize his feelings and do not harbor resentment towards him for it, our situation has evolved to the point where I feel the need to mentally prepare myself for how to communicate with him in a manner that satisfies him. Today, he conveyed that communicating with me is unpleasant, and that he wishes for our conversations to be cheerful, positive, and open. Additionally, I should mention that his grandmother, who is unfortunately no longer alive, was his guiding light during his childhood. She raised him and was by nature an extroverted and open woman. He subconsciously wishes for me to emulate her, but I am simply unable to do so. I deeply regret that I cannot fulfill this expectation. I genuinely want to meet his wishes, but I have always been and will continue to be an introverted person who enjoys conversation, albeit not in the same way an extrovert does. It is also worth noting that my boyfriend has been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, for which he takes medication, and he also has mild Asperger's syndrome. Nevertheless, he is highly intelligent and functional. One would not suspect he has these conditions, though he sometimes struggles to understand people and has a slightly reduced ability to empathize. Now, regarding our current situation, we reside in a family home that is rather small, which adds to the difficulties we face. I am on parental leave caring for our 6-month-old daughter and nearly 3-year-old son. Our son is likely also exhibiting signs of ADHD. He is a good child but incredibly challenging in terms of upbringing and care. He requires constant engagement and can be quite temperamental. This creates additional frustration for my boyfriend, resulting in many conflicts. He treats his son with kindness, yet he frequently voices his discontent about our son's behavior in front of me, demonstrating just how bothersome it is for him. Thus, when situations arise such as weekends when we are all home, I typically fear my boyfriend's reaction. I never know how he will respond if our son becomes increasingly frustrated. My boyfriend does not react aggressively, but as the atmosphere in the house becomes tense, he repeatedly expresses how bothered he is and how he suffers from anxiety issues. We also have the added challenge of a baby daughter who fortunately behaves well, but as a young child she still requires attention at night, and I have been juggling my responsibilities while preparing for professional exams. By the end of the day, I feel thoroughly exhausted, And when my boyfriend arrives, I can sense that he subconsciously expects me to be devoted to him and embody the open, extroverted nature of his grandmother's image, which I simply cannot do. This becomes especially challenging in light of my mother's inoperable cancer diagnosis, as she is currently in palliative care. This situation affects me profoundly as I share a close bond with her. She has had a difficult life and was looking forward to spending time with her grandchildren. As her only child, I feel her pain acutely, particularly following her diagnosis that occurred a year ago. As a result, I truly cannot be a cheerful extrovert during this time, even if I wish to be so under better circumstances. This pains me immensely. I would like to be a different person for the sake of our family's happiness, but I am uncertain about how to enact such a change. He continually emphasizes how he has had to adapt and modify his behavior due to his ADHD. I acknowledge that he was more extroverted when we first started dating and had even greater expectations of me. He has conceded many times, yet our situation remains unchanged. In the context of our day-to-day life, my boyfriend does not assist me significantly. While I am often told that I can request help, when I attempt to do so, there tends to be excessive discussion about why tasks cannot be done more efficiently, leading me to find it easier to handle things myself. Our typical day when we are all at home involves me rising in the morning with the children and caring for them. We play together and I also manage household duties or work on my professional responsibilities. After a while, my boyfriend wakes up and I prepare breakfast for him. He joins us in the living room, we engage in light conversation, and he spends a brief period playing with our son, maybe about 15 minutes before spending some time with our daughter. However, if he feels overwhelmed or irritated by the stimuli around him, he states that he must retreat to his room to reset, either to use the computer or to rest remaining that way until lunch. After which he expresses a desire for lunch and I prepare the meal. Although he often compliments me and expresses satisfaction, he frequently returns to his room or remains with us without fully engaging in play with our son as he should. Furthermore, he constantly remarks that I do not play enough with our son, despite him struggling to focus on activities for extended periods. It is indeed the case that when I suggest we take a trip or enjoy an outing together, he participates. Though not consistently at home, he shows gratitude for doing so. However, it feels as though I am managing everything alone, caring for the children, maintaining the household, and dealing with the situation surrounding my mother's health. The culmination of all of this has reached a point where, in conjunction with the difficulties in my family, coping with my partner, and managing the demands of daily life, I have resorted to taking 2 antidepressants and a benzodiazepine several times a week. I am overwhelmed with anxiety and the visuals reveal that I am rapidly declining. We are now at a stage where my boyfriend enters the living room with the children, and I feel nauseous, even though he has not done anything wrong. I dread the possibility of tension or conflict arising, despite the fact that we have navigated these issues for nearly a decade, and I can no longer tolerate the strain. My boyfriend's solution is that I should seek therapy to become happier and to take steps to improve my mental health. He has also stated that he would pursue therapy as soon as possible, but the burdensome issues seem to fall squarely on my shoulders. At times, I question where the fault lies. It appears to be an issue on both sides as I constantly reflect on what might be wrong with me. My boyfriend often mentions that no man could tolerate being with such an introverted and reserved person, particularly with a high-energy child like our son who can be demanding and temperamental. He asserts that all other fathers would leave, but he has chosen to stay, and I recognize that this is true. It is equally true that he does not cheat on me, treats me decently, and is not unkind. I know he loves me and I do not wish to dismantle our family, even though several people have suggested it might be better for us to separate and remain loving parents to our children. I find it difficult to accept this notion, as it is not a situation of abuse or unbearable circumstances. Rather, there is a pervasive sense of dissatisfaction creeping in on both sides daily. Neither of us feels content, and I genuinely do not know whether therapy would provide the solution. Our fundamental natures cannot be altered. A friend of mine has suggested that our situation may improve if we attain better financial stability, allowing us more resources and space, thus reducing tension. Yet I am uncertain if that alone would resolve our issues. What do you think based on your experiences? I thought it would be helpful to ask for your insights on this situation, as I am feeling desperate and truly want to find a resolution. However, I am slowly losing hope, especially after seeing no changes over the past decade despite trying various approaches. On the other hand, I wish to preserve my family. I love my boyfriend and want us to be a complete family. Unfortunately, the situation is eroding me internally, and I am at a loss for what to do. Thank you very much to everyone who has read this far. Story 3. My boyfriend seems more interested in my lesbian friend than me, saying, "I've never felt so seen by her." After catching them together at parties, I'm left questioning everything. Am I overreacting or are my jealousy alarm bells justified? My boyfriend, 20 years old male, and I, 19 years old female, have been dating for a little over 2 years. We have encountered some issues in our relationship, but I have never experienced actual jealousy until now. Recently, I made a new female friend named Angela. Please keep in mind that she is a lesbian and has had a girlfriend for about 1 month. After we became fairly close, I decided to introduce her to my boyfriend. Immediately, they seemed to hit it off and appeared to get along even better than she and I did. They share a similar sense of humor, enjoy the same activities, and jokingly tease each other constantly. Initially, I dismissed this and was just pleased they were connecting, but at this point, I am overwhelmed. It began with minor red flags, such as my boyfriend discussing how intense and bossy she is, but it progressed into more emotionally intimate interactions that felt like cheating. For instance, one night we all shared dinner together and he mentioned his mental health issues. She immediately focused on him, maintaining uninterrupted eye contact while asking him profound questions. She claimed that she completely understood him and everything he was expressing. I thought it was kind and did not mind too much, but afterward he repeatedly mentioned that he had never felt so seen and validated by anyone. This stung a little, considering I am his actual girlfriend and we have shared some significant experiences together. There have been several other instances similar to this one where they engage in deep emotional discussions without including me. The next incident occurred at a party. My boyfriend arrived about 30 minutes before it ended to pick me up and take me home. He ended up staying for a while and we were sitting on the couch together. Angela approached, sat down next to him, and they started chatting. I was unaware at the time because I felt a bit out of it. However, throughout the conversation, she was leaning on him and grabbing his bicep. I understand she was drunk, but I think her behavior was quite disrespectful. He mentioned it the next day, saying it felt strange being between two girls leaning on him. I asked if he enjoyed it and he laughed it off, but it was clear that he appreciated the female attention. At another party this past weekend, my boyfriend and I arrived about 2 hours late. We walked in and I chatted with Angela for a few minutes until she left me to talk to my boyfriend. I felt a little hurt but chose to ignore it and talk to one of my other female friends. From across the room, I noticed them laughing together, and he appeared genuinely happier than I had seen him around me. I even noticed her playfully pushing him a few times and getting really close to him. Later that night, while we were in a corner of the room, Angela was in the bathroom throwing up. He expressed concern for her, and when she returned and sat on the couch, he went to sit next to her without saying a word to me. At that moment, I felt like crying. Once again, I found myself staring at them from across the room, filled with jealousy and frustration. Then he felt unwell and needed to go to the bathroom, so I accompanied him. While I was comforting him and giving him water, Angela barged into the bathroom, went straight to him, and started touching his back while urging him to throw up so he could feel better. Her brother intervened and pulled her out of the bathroom, but I was already fed up and told my boyfriend we were leaving immediately. Without saying goodbye to her, we exited. The next day, my boyfriend told me, I don't know why, but after we left, I sent Angela this Snapchat. It was a picture of him saved in the chat with a text that read something like, I don't know what happened, but I really hope you're okay and not feeling too sick. This was honestly the last straw for me because I do not understand why my boyfriend is so concerned about another woman's well-being. He seems to genuinely enjoy her company and cares a lot about her. I hope I do not come across as crazy or possessive, but it really hurts to see my boyfriend so captivated and worried about someone who is supposed to be my friend. They continue to exchange snaps and TikToks frequently, and I truly do not know how to address this or bring it up to him. I am unsure whether my feelings of upset are valid. Any advice would be appreciated.